This program contains language that is intended for mature or immature audiences. Anyone affiliated with this train wreck of a show assumes no responsibility for its content. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to hide the kids and pop the top on a cold one. Coming to you from the extravagant studio at SAA Productions in Charleston, West Virginia, please welcome the inebriated cast of Section 304.
Welcome in, everybody, to Section 304, the Section 304 podcast, where, as always, we're drinking beers, talking ears. I'm Anthony Lewis, joined today by Matt Durrett, John Crum, and producer Steve is driving this train wreck today for us. And on today's show, we're going to discuss the beatdown in Kansas and dive into the topic of Eastern football, or the lack of Eastern football today. And in today's show, we are joined by John Pennington, who is in studio with us. Welcome in, John, to the extravagant SAA studios, as we call it in the open of the show. Welcome in, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. I've been looking forward to coming to one of these. I know I wasn't able to go to B-Dubs that one night, so I'm actually waiting, coming and talking ball with you guys.
Well, what we do on the show is sit and basically spend an hour bullshitting around talking about WVU football. We had Mage in the studio, so we just basically talked to him directly a lot for the show. And obviously, before we get into talking about what you're up to now, let's get into the Kansas game yesterday. We'll kind of breeze through that, because that was kind of a beatdown, wouldn't you say?
I was in the bag by the end of the first quarter.
You look beat down today.
Well, some days you think it's a smart move to grab a bottle of tequila that you found in your freezer and start doing shots when William Crest comes in the game and ends poorly.
Is that about the time when you posted on Facebook, Willie time? Is that about the time when the tequila came out?
About that time. Oh, it came out a little bit before that. And I had I had a huge White Russian before I went out. I feel like that was the one that just put me over the top. That was the dagger. I made it in like one of those glasses. You screw the top on, you shake it. It's like 3 or 4 shots of vodka in that thing, some chocolate milk, some Baileys, and it's just a problem. I'm paying for it today. I'm too old for this shit.
What'd you think of the game?
I mean, they did what they were supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. Win the ones you're supposed to win. They won it in a pretty good fashion. Put it away early. There was no doubts. Covered the spread in the first quarter, I believe. And if they didn't, they were pretty close to covering it. Run game looked good. I
thought they did what they were supposed to do. If they came out and they pissed around and struggled, I thought, all right, maybe we're not what because I think I have a pretty good gauge of what I think this team is, and I thought they should have went to Kansas and handled them pretty well. But if they would have pissed around, I would have been a little concerned. But the fact that they came out and kind of ended it in the first quarter.
How did this team lose to TCU by a touchdown? That's what I kept thinking yesterday, because that thing was over pretty much after Terrell Chestnut took that pick six to the house. Yeah. It was over.
And John, you can probably speak to this. Sometimes it's hard to get up for Kansas, or in your case, it's hard to get up for Temple or Tennessee. Chat. Well, that was
the other side is, oh shit, we're 0-10. What's the point of doing this anymore?
Football is a game of inches in split seconds, and sometimes you're on the wrong side of that. And I think obviously TCU against Kansas was on the wrong side, and Kansas was on the wrong side against us. I mean, there were gigantic holes everywhere. I mean, I thought they did a good job, preparing and beating them down like they were supposed to do it. Especially, I know I don't get to watch much WVU football because I'm coaching, but I know they had a horrendous month of October, and to see them bounce back, get 2 big wins, and then handle business like this on the road is a great sign, for improvement. I mean, it's a long season, and it's easy to, obviously Kansas was a team that wasn't as prepared, and a lot of times it's the other way around. Obviously TCU was not as prepared as they should have been, and Kansas got up for that game, and Kansas is one of the worst football teams I've ever seen yesterday. But I'm sure against TCU they played a great game, and that's football, and luckily WVU has done a great job responding, and it's that was the first game I've got to watch. It was fun as hell to watch. I mean, they were like I said, gigantic holes. We could do whatever we wanted in the run game, and as a coordinator, it's real easy to call plays when you can, your O-line's just opening up gigantic holes like that, and you could just see how much better we were talent wise, and it was good that we handled our business.
For Kansas, I mean, just even looking in the stands yesterday, I mean, how do you really get jacked up on? Was that their senior day yesterday? I mean, they might have won the game, but it was probably 3,000 people there. I don't even know
during the game though. They said Kansas is playing a lot of young guys.
Yeah,
I think their coach
as backups.
Yeah, their coach has gone in there completely blown that thing up, and they're literally rebuilding everything. So. It's good we took care of business because 2 years ago we went down there and we were probably a better team even though our record wasn't very good, and we got our butts kicked. So I expected a little bit more of a fight, but it was good to see us, like John said, just run it down their throat. And there's this team, this offensive line, it seems to me the offensive line is clicking and is playing about as well as I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, and it looks like to me something that Matt pointed out a couple weeks ago, and you probably saw it yesterday. When we run the ball now, they're pulling guards. Like I said last week, they're pulling these guys with lead blockers. They're running the fullback, and that's helping. I mean, early in the season it was almost like they were trying to trick people with 3 and 4 wide receivers and 3 receivers and trying to run the football. Well, if you don't have a lead blocker for some of these guys, it's just not going to work. And you probably noticed some of that yesterday.
Yeah, I saw. I don't know. It was an early touchdown run. We ran like a counter with the fullback influencing outside, and it took the linebacker out, and the hole opened wide up. I think it was Smallwood that scored, but I thought it was a great game plan. It was early in the game. I think it made it 21-0, but it was a great scheme, and you're seeing them do a lot of that. And I think when you got Cody Clay and Wellman, and you can use some of those guys to to really get the run game going. But I thought Kansas. I don't think you go to Kansas for the crowds. You're not going to sign in Kansas to play in front of a lot of people at home.
I think you get out there to get good food. That's about
watch basketball,
yeah,
some barbecue. No, I mean, and I heard Tony talking about it Thursday night that that Weiss had kind of gone the full JUCO route and just destroyed the program. And this guy's come in and there's nothing, like literally the cupboard's bare. I mean, there was. He tried to go all JUCO and it obviously didn't work, and then there was nothing left for this guy. So they're having to literally rebuild from the bottom up. And I know been through that before at other schools, and it's no fun. And it sounds like they have some good things going. From what I don't know if the announcers just did a good job marketing the game or what, but Tony had me believing that they had they were going to put up a pretty good fight.
Charlie Weiss probably has the best agent.
I think he's the smartest guy in America.
Yeah,
because he's getting paid by Notre Dame and he's still getting paid by Kansas. It's just incredible to me.
And he's just laughing and eating.
Yeah,
just laughing away. I mean,
what a life!
Yeah,
what a life.
But that's a shame too, because was it Mangino just had them in the Orange Bowl?
They were respectable with Mangino.
And their kid to lead or whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah, they were good.
On pretty good team.
Are those sweet tarts good? Mm-hmm. my man Durrett is struggling this morning. And
sweet tarts are getting me through right now.
That's all right, man. But obviously, it's the numbers are inflated because Kansas is a poor team. But one thing that we finally got to take a look at yesterday was we got to see the backups. We got to see William Crest, and maybe got some answers to why Skylar Howard is still the starting quarterback.
Still haven't seen David Sills play.
Well,
so I don't think
this guy is never happy.
No, it took us 10 games to get to Willie Crest. I mean,
Howard probably shouldn't be back there. He's not a very good quarterback.
Well, who are you going to put back there?
Well, not William Crest, so let's see Sills.
At this point in the game, you're not going to change what you're doing. But,
I'd rather have you back there than Howard.
Well, I might be able to throw it.
Just hand the ball off. It's not that hard.
Yeah, I guess even Skylar Howard yesterday had a banged-up hand, which I thought we might see Willie time the whole time yesterday, actually. I probably would have just probably rested Skylar Howard yesterday and let Willie just hand it off the whole game.
He probably shouldn't have played after the first quarter.
No, and I thought it was strange that they put him back in. Is that a pretty common thing where they stick him back in the first series of the second half, and then it seemed like I saw him come back out.
Yeah.
The coaches,
Right.
I see that a lot, though.
Kind of varies from coach to coach, but what was the score at halftime? Was it
42-0.
42? Yeah, I mean, you want to go out and score the first series and then get your backups in. That's at least the standard issue of what you normally try and do. Did we come out and score the first drive?
I don't
Probably.
No, because we only scored 7
in the second half.
You can look there.
I don't think we scored the first drive.
What about the defense though, pitching the shutout? I mean, even at the end, they got a couple picks in the end zone, and that's I know they were scrapping around. That was good to see. When's the last time we shut somebody out?
Well, other than
Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
Georgia
It's the
Southern.
first time since '96 we've shut out 2 teams, but we had a little bit better competition. We shut out Pittsburgh and I believe Maryland, yeah, in
Yeah,
'96.
you don't see those. You don't
Well, we
see
also
shutouts
had
like
the number 1 defense in the country that year too.
Well, we don't have the number 1 defense now.
They're
Number
pretty
one in the
good.
Big
They're
12.
playing well, man. I mean, they had a rough October, but
That '96 defense is special.
Yes.
That's a little bit when you got John Browning and Knute Curtis and
Logan.
Mike Logan and Van Washington, those guys back there playing. That's a little bit different.
They lost Carl Joseph too. I mean, you lost your leader, your outspoken leader, and you're still able to. It's a testament to what Gibby's doing up there. I think to get them playing like that again.
Well, good all around effort yesterday. I thought. I think it was exactly what that team needed at this point in the season, especially coming off of that rough October. I mean, and I think I even said it last week. If you schedule this year a little bit different, the fan morale, the morale in general would be totally different than what it was in October. If you're sitting at 6-4 and some of those wins came in the middle of that losing, I don't think everybody would have been so suicidal. But you're getting it back, you're winning. You've got 2 very winnable games ahead of you, which could you could end up being 8-4, which is probably a game more than what I predicted.
8-4 is what I think everybody was looking for, but he's just not a very smart coach. He's just not.
8-4 is what you're looking for, and this is where
Yeah,
you're
but
gonna
he's
be.
proven that he's an idiot, dude.
Well,
He had a problem running the ball last week. He was pissed. He had to run the ball 30 times when he's getting 6-7 yards a clip. As a coach, if you're getting 6 and 7 yards a clip, how the fuck are you mad? That's a first down every 2 plays.
Yeah, I did hear on Thursday. He sounded not frustrated, but like it was very difficult for him to play old school football.
Yeah.
But it is probably difficult. It's just not who he is, but it's what you need to do to win here. And
At the end of the
I hope he
day,
embraces it.
national championships are won by defense and running the ball.
Yeah,
The spread has been run by Oregon, the best you're ever going to see the spread win. And what happens to them? They get pounded by Alabama, who runs the ball and plays defense.
We watched some SEC games yesterday. Those games are not sexy games to watch. They're but
It's just line it up. It's
but
fast
guys like Coach Nealon and Bowden. Well, Bowden liked to air it out, but he ran the ball a lot though. I mean, but he liked to air it out. But those old coaches are sitting at home. Well, they have that Harris poll. Is that what that's called? All the old time coaches get together and they have that. They just sit and love. They probably just sit and watch SEC football.
I think we talked about it last week, and John and I talked about it on the drive over here. West Virginia has to run the ball if we're going to be good.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of kids we get. I mean, I'm glad he is transitioning out of throwing the ball 60 times a game into this. Because
And it might
fits
be
our
different next
personnel better, and I think you win consistently when you run the ball and play defense.
As a coordinator, we had been saying it early in the season, and it took us 2 games to basically decide that Shell should be getting half the amount of carries of what Small. Well, you can't just run a guy the whole time, so you got to, if you're giving Small with the ball 20 times, Shell gets it 10. I mean, and as a coordinator, when you see that type of stuff. When do you start to transition, and is there a way to kind of, like with what West Virginia is doing now, run the ball, but then maybe next year develop it into something to where you can get back to passing the ball? How do you make that transition to where you can actually start throwing the ball again next year?
I mean, I think you have to adapt to your personnel. I mean, obviously running the football and playing defense wins championships, but it doesn't win them every time. I mean, the 49ers won with the passing game. It's the best dynasty maybe arguably of all time,
Right.
and Joe Montana in the short passing game. So the West Coast offense. But you have to fit your personnel. Like John said, we talked about on the way over here. You're going to, in West Virginia, or not just the state of West Virginia, but at WVU, you're going to be able to get great running backs, fullbacks that are, that can smash mouth football, tight ends. You're going to be able to find those type of guys close to home. That you maybe, that maybe some of those Texas schools that, can't find the typical blue collar fullback, tight end, running back types. And you're just going to have to embrace that to win here. It just seems like, if we get some special receivers, which I think we have 2 really good freshmen, right? I mean, we're going to be able to throw the ball. I mean, I do think Skylar Howard is not a big time quarterback, but if you can run the ball and the kid seems tough, and he can make decisions and manage games because he's going to have a lot of starts under his belt, then he can win a championship. But you're not going to sit back there and throw the ball 50 times with Skylar Howard and be any type of good football team. So, I think Dana seems like he's smart enough to realize that, but until we get a better quarterback, you're going to have to lean on the run game. I mean, it's all about personnel, and, you got to get Wendell Smallwood touches and, and even Russell Shell and let those guys, carry you down the field. But you're going to have to be able to throw the ball in 3rd and 6 situations, 3rd and 10 against some of these better teams. And, football's week to week. I mean, we'll sit here next week, or you guys will. I won't be here, but you guys sit here next week. We lose to Iowa State, and we'll just talk about how horrible everything is. And so they're going to have to keep, they're going to have to keep stepping up. I mean, they lose either of these games. I mean, we're putting them in the book as wins right now, but I'm sure Iowa State's not. And I'm sure that Kansas, Coach Snyder at Kansas State's going to have something ready at the end of the year. So it's going to be a tough 2 games to finish strong. And if Dana can do that, I would say, hats off. And I've never been a huge fan of Dana, but if he can get to 8-4, I mean, I'd say it's a great job this season. But it's still going to be tough these next 2 games.
Back to what we were talking about, though, John. You recruit around the country, probably primarily the East Coast. Is there a difference between what kids run here, maybe here in Pennsylvania, versus Florida versus Texas? I mean, it seems to me like we watch Big 12 and we see all these quarterbacks that can just throw the ball, pinpoint accuracy, and they just shuffle them in and out. I mean, is there a difference between a kid in Florida, a kid in Pennsylvania, schematically, talent-wise? What's the difference? Why haven't we found a quarterback, or are we looking to the wrong kind of quarterback? Maybe we should have a mobile guy back there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference in high school football in every state. And there's a huge difference in culture between New York and Pennsylvania and Ohio than Texas and Florida. I mean, Texas and Florida is almost like small college football down there. I mean, they have a lot of talent down there, but you got a whole different mentality of quarterback in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Those guys are they believe, most of them probably, that running the football wins championships. And I'm sure, in different areas, they believe that you spread it out and you throw it for 500 yards and you win. And I don't know why we can't get, a big time quarterback, especially, coming off an Orange Bowl win. You would think that we'd have a young guy in there that would be unbelievable. And I think that that's probably their number one downfall, is not getting, a good enough guy back there. So definitely going to have to find a guy. And with Dana, you would think that you should be able to find, a good enough quarterback to throw it around. I mean, the offense fits, a talented quarterback. But you're right. I mean, running the football gives you an extra hat in the box. Or not running the quarterback gives you an extra hat in the box. And if you're not as talented as Baylor or some of those guys, you're going to have to run the quarterback zone. I think Skylar Howard gives you that, but you're going to have to completely embrace it and have a good backup if you're going to go that route. And it seems like William Crest, one thing I will say about Crest is he's playing with backups, so his stats are it's not going to look as good. I mean, he ran the ball, hard, and he's a big physical guy. I mean, you never know what he could do with better talent around him. He didn't look like he's the answer. I know that. But if you have a good backup, you can run Skylar Howard and not be as concerned with him getting hurt. But yeah, you're right. There's different cultures in different states in high school football, and we recruit all over the place. But you're gonna have to find a guy that fits, that can throw the ball a little bit better to win a championship, or either that or go full, running the quarterback, tight end, fullback route, and that's not a problem with either of those as long as we win.
Yeah. I mean, hell, even Baylor had their 3rd string guy in there. He came in, looked like freaking Joe Montana. He was just throwing the ball over the place. We were over at Allen's last night. I was like, who the hell is this kid? And I didn't realize
he won the game.
The backup got hurt, right?
Yeah.
I didn't see that part because, over at Allen's, he's got 5 televisions. You can't even see, it's hard to watch. So I didn't know the 3rd string guy. And I was like, damn, this freshman's throwing the ball over the place. And he says, that's the 3rd string guy. And I just said, well, damn, like,
We can't get one of these guys.
Yeah, this guy's their third string guys probably had to find his helmet.
I mean, Baker Mayfield was at Texas Tech, and I mean, they kind of just pushed him out the door. And I mean, I'm sure they regret that, but
he's pretty solid.
He's pretty good
quarterback.
I don't think much of Kingsbury though.
Kingsbury's a tool.
Yeah, anybody that wears Ray-Bans.
Fucking guys over there. I mean, what an asshole. Kingsbury's an asshole.
Yeah, he's done a good job branding himself. I'll give him that. He's got a pretty good contract, and he doesn't seem to coach football very well. But
no.
He's kind of like Charlie Weiss. He might be a genius because he's able to brand himself and make a lot of money doing not doing a very good job.
Doing nothing.
He got a huge contract at Texas Tech.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is it came out yesterday is we're 6-4, bowl eligible. And we talked a little bit about it before. I think when it seemed like it was going down the shitter there for a little while, being bowl eligible is a big sigh of relief for a lot of people.
Man, there's too many bowl games now. I mean,
there are a lot.
Playing in a bowl used to be something. You had a good year. You're 9-3. You play in a bowl game. Now you could be a 500 team and you're going to. Are bowl games even special anymore?
It's money.
I know it's all
an
money
extra
grab,
month of
but
practice
I mean,
too.
It's an extra month of practice. That's the big part. It's big for your program. You get more practice. You can sell. You can sell that to recruits, even if it is a shitty bowl. You can at least sell it. You've been to so many bowls in so many years, and you can sell it. You know what I mean? And so it also gives us something to talk about at Christmas about how shitty the bowl is, or how who we're playing. It gives fans something to talk about. And for me, I don't get to watch very many games, so I'm praying every year we go to a bowl so I can
get to watch.
Yeah, I can pass it on to my sons. Being a Mountaineer fan and what it means. So for me, it's a big deal because I get to watch the last couple games and the bowl games.
I think and I think that's good for the program, especially considering where we were headed in October. Getting to that six win mark, kind of you can breathe a little bit, and then also too, the Big 12 bowls are actually decent bowls that were matched up with some good conferences other than that Pinstripe Bowl, which I don't even know if we're still affiliated with that anymore. That was who the hell wants to play?
Fucking snowing and playing Syracuse in their backyard at Yankee Stadium. And the guy wouldn't even let me go out to the Monument Garden. Fucking had everything roped off. Go up there to cover that bowl when they let you walk like the concourse, just barely any of it. Couldn't even walk around the stadium. We were up there. It was a terrible bowl.
I mean, who wants to go to New York in December? And it just snowed.
Got to see that tree at Rockefeller Center. That was pretty cool.
Nah, that's a piss poor bowl for the Big 12. I'm glad they got rid of that. But, hopefully we get to play we played A&M last year, which is a good game for us. Probably would have been better for us if Trickett was healthy. But, you're going to get matched up against someone good, which is good it's what we need this year.
From what I've seen,
we got to win one.
We're going to probably, if we win out, we'll end up in Orlando, the Russell Athletic Bowl, the game we were in a couple years ago where Russell Wilson had his way with us. And one of the teams we might play would be Pitt. So that would be
solid.
That would be interesting.
That would definitely pique the fans' interest. Yeah. That's for sure. I think if we played a Pitt, I think for bowl games, what they look at a lot of the time too is matchups and to create matchups, storylines, that type of thing. I mean, and I hope even if we don't get Pittsburgh, I'd like to get maybe matched up against Arizona.
I read somewhere North Carolina as a possibility.
North Carolina would be a fun game. It'd be a lot of fans there, like we played in the Continental Tire Bowl. Well, it's called something else then, but the Tire Bowl in Charlotte.
Ryan Switzer gets his chance for revenge.
They won the ACC, right? We have no chance of playing them. Well, they won their side of it.
Yeah, it's going to be in the ACC. It looks like it's going to be Clemson and North Carolina. So they'll probably fall to the second tier, which I believe for them is the Gator.
So it's changed so much. They might get one of the BC New Year's Six games now is what they call it.
It's all changed. I used to have it all ironed out, man, back in the day.
How great would it be to play Pitt?
Yeah.
They kind of let's be honest, they ducked us. Their old athletic director didn't want anything to do with playing West Virginia, and they ducked us. And if we got to play them in a bowl game, I think the guy they have in there now is all in favor of playing West Virginia.
Well, it's going to
obviously we got the series in 2020 or whatever, but that would be a great December bowl game for us, would be playing Pitt.
Well, here's what we'll do. Let's take a break real fast, and when we come back from the break, let's talk to John about his time at WVU, playing teams like Pittsburgh, and we'll talk a little bit about, and like we mentioned at the beginning of the show, a lack of what I call an Eastern Football League conference, and almost Eastern football is almost invisible to me these days. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive in and talk to John Pennington about some of that. Do you love West Virginia? Check out Home Furnishings by Bear Wood Company. Log into bearwoodcompany.com and put West Virginia pride in your decorating design. The Bear Wood Company, always home. For the best in vintage advertising signs, World War II collectibles, collectible vinyl records, and coins, check out our friends at Red Fox Antiques and Collectibles in Scott Depot, right off I-64, exit 40. This isn't your grandma's antique shop. This is a mantique shop. For more information, check them out on Facebook or give them a call, 304-757-9589. The Dell Sparks Collection. Dell has documented WVU sports for over 30 years and features the greatest moments in Mountaineer history. Check out his magic moments from Major Harris, Pat White, Tavon Austin, and so many more. For all of your favorite Mountaineer moments printed and framed, visit DellSparks.com or give him a call, 304-296-6004. The Griffith Law Center, PLLC, a Charleston-based law firm servicing the entire state of West Virginia and parts of southern Kentucky, specializing in serious injuries, wrongful death, and wrongful termination. The Griffith Law Center. Now you have a friend that's a lawyer. Call today for a free consultation at 304-345-8999 or give them a visit on the web at protectingwv.com. For all of your web and graphic design, go with the best. Go with our friends at Loggerhead Designs. They're true graphic professionals. Anything from business cards to high-end websites. They can handle it all. The next time you need your ads to really pop, head over to loggerheaddesigns.com or call 910-541-0143. And welcome back into the second half of the Section 304 podcast. And for those of you listening, thank you for taking the opportunity to download us. I hope you're telling your friends about us, spreading the word about our fantastic podcast that we make available to you guys on a weekly basis. Before we dive into any more football real fast, we'll get into the Bearwood Company Fan of the Week. If you'd like to become the Bearwood Company Fan of the Week, we highly suggest you send in your photographs from if you're at like a game watch or tailgate. Email those in to section 304wv@gmail.com. And real quick, we had our game. I had our game watch party yesterday at Buffalo Wild Wings for my annual visit to the Davis Child Shelter. And for those of you that did come out, thank you guys so much. Where the fuck were you two yesterday? Because
Obviously, I was in the bottle.
You don't like Christmas and kids, and
I was painting a nightstand.
I love Christmas.
Don't like kids. Don't like helping kids at Christmas.
Kids are awesome. I told you where I was, Lou. I was drinking. Dude.
I'm gonna boycott. You guys don't even like. I'm gonna boycott you two like they did those Starbucks cups. You guys don't like Christmas.
You didn't want me out there yesterday.
You guys are part of ISIS, man. I mean, just no kid. I'm gonna expect a significant check from the both of you two assholes.
Don't have any. Lost it last night on the Kodo fight. Never bet on.
As he was texting me pictures of a pair of like $300 Jordans, he's like, "I don't have any money for those kids.
I don't have any money for those kids. I got to sell those Jordans. Actually, Crumb, they're your size. If you're interested,
he's gonna try to flip them on you. Don't do it.
We can talk. Now, I will mark them up substantially on you, but we can talk.
All right. Well, once again, joining us today is John Pennington, former wide receiver, local guy, came out of GW. I guess, going to West Virginia, I mean, you've been removed from Morgantown now for 10 years?
More than that, maybe
12. So I guess looking back at it now, what are some things that really stand out to you memory-wise? I mean, obviously, we're probably going to ask you about the ones you always get asked about, but just talk to us the catch. But just tell us a little bit about what when you think back to your time out there, what stands out to you about your time in Morgantown?
I think the first thing that stands out is the passion of the fans. You know, and obviously I'm a fan and grew up a fan, but I can remember being on the bus and you're driving down Don Knotts Boulevard, and there was that one house, and there were just so many fans out there. And it was probably like 3 hours before the game, and they're half lit, and they're out there just cheering us on as we
Tailgate Central is what it was called.
And I remember seeing some of our players' parents out there, and it was just, the passion was incredible. And sometimes that leads to some bad things. You know, we get some bad news from it, but I wouldn't trade that for the world. I love the passion of our fans, and that's what makes it so great. But, you know, playing for Don Nealon and guys like Steve Dunlap and obviously Rich Rodriguez, Bill Stewart, the coaches that I was fortunate enough to play for is what I'll remember most, and the relationships that I built with with my teammates and guys that I still stay in touch with. And that's really what it's all about, you know, for us. And then, having the ability to have role models like that was an incredible influence on me, and obviously what I do for a living. But the things that I remember, you know, more than besides joking around the locker room and messing around at practice was the big games. You know, that's my favorite part about football, is those games that come down to the wire, those critical plays, and the Pitt catch and the Miami game was unbelievable. I mean, I never believed in moral losses until that game happened, or moral victories until that game happened. And even though we lost, we knew we could beat anybody. I think we won 7 in a row and then got hammered in the bowl game. But stuff like that you remember, and the win at Virginia Tech, where Grant Wiley stopped Lee Suggs on the goal line. I mean, some of those experiences you just never forget. And the more than anything though is just the relationships. And Don Nealon, I still stay in touch with him. I know you know Don. He's incredibly sharp still, and just an incredible mentor. Obviously, Rich Rodriguez had a major influence on me, and I just read Bill Stewart's book. If you get a chance, he didn't write the book, but there's a book on him and his, written about him. It was an excellent book, and just about what it means to be a West Virginian, and just a good guy. He was a great father, great husband, and great West Virginian. And to have people around me like that, and you got Bill Krlavich. I mean, there's too many names to go on and on about.
We could spend a whole show talking about Bill Krlavich,
Castile, and just so many people that had a major influence on my life. And that's what I remember most. The fans' passion, the relationships built, and then obviously the big games.
That Miami game, man, Brock Berlin couldn't throw for dick.
He was not.
And he somehow hangs that ball up there for Kellen Winslow to go get it. I about puked because Berlin was terrible. And we had that game locked, and he somehow pulls that throw out of his ass.
4th and 18.
And Winslow's Winslow was a monster. Him and Pac-Man have been going at it all game. But that just seemed like a game that we should. I mean, Quincy has that huge run down the sideline. That was just a game where it seemed like all the cards were going to fall into place. And then Berlin pulls that throw out of nowhere.
Well, it was an easy throw. It was, man, cover 0, and it was. I thought it was a great call by Castile to just go after it, and the hell was sitting back there letting them pick us apart. But we went after it. He just threw it up to a great player who made a great play.
A soldier.
Yeah.
Well, and it happened.
A soldier.
When I was shooting a video at MSN, I would shoot what they call the reverse. I would shoot the opposite team coming at us, and it happened right in my lens, and I followed the ball up. Winslow comes out of the bottom right of my corner. You just see his hands come up, and you pull out. And I just remember thinking, "Holy shit! How did he make that catch?"
What I remember most from that game was after the game, Rodriguez, before he even got started in the press conference, he said something along the lines of, "We're not into moral victories, so don't even ask that." Yeah. And I think that game told me we were 3-8 his first year. We went 9-4 the second year. And then that year, we started off 1-4. I don't think a lot of people remember. We lost the game to Cincinnati. We shouldn't have lost. We lost to Wisconsin in the opener. I thought we should have beaten Wisconsin. And you could kind of tell that the attitude of the program had changed. From an outsider, John was on the team, actually. But we were going to be all right. Like, things were going to be okay.
I do remember... seems like I remember being in the locker room, and it was pretty quiet down there. I remember, did Kirk Herbstreit come into the locker room? It seemed like I saw him come down, and it was almost like he came to see us, not Miami. Kind of keep your head. I know I saw him and Rich talking, and man, you would, and I've talked to these guys before. I don't get wound up over losses. You guys have seen me come in here after losses. I'm just like, here's this, here's that. And that was probably the day the fan side of me died. Seriously, like, because I was a fan, I had the position I was in. I was a fan thrust into this job. So I got to travel with these guys. And that was the day that it died. Like, because you just had to pack your stuff, get on the plane, come back up. And that's when it felt like a job. And you can't. And that's where you got to look forward. And it seemed like from that point on, that's what that team did, was kind of just put it to bed and move forward that day.
Do you remember Pac-Man punching Winslow in the face?
Yes.
That was great.
I remember them splitting Winslow out on the goal line to throw a fade on Pac-Man, and he picked him up. He jammed him up on the line and picked him off. And I thought that was when Pac-Man was, we all knew he was great, but that was when it was kind of his not his coming out party, but to do that against Winslow and just to jam him up on a fade and pick it off. I mean, you don't do that against an all-pro
especially
tight
a guy
end.
that's 5'9".
Was he? No, he was a sophomore or
Was he a
he was
sophomore?
a junior that year because I was a junior. I think we were the same grade. Yeah, because he didn't get redshirted.
Okay, yeah.
But I mean, people knew who he was, but that was when I was like, man, he's going to be great.
Pac-Man's one of those dudes who came in and he like lived up to the hype. Like you get all these kids that come in and you're so excited when they commit. Oh, we got a 4-star. Pac-Man came in and lived up to the hype immediately.
Pac-Man, you can talk a little bit about it. He's an interesting cat. I don't know if you guys have ever been around
I've
Pac-Man.
met Pac-Man a couple times.
But what I don't think what you see if you follow him on social media, there all the things you've heard and he's been in trouble for. He's never came across to me as that person. And maybe you could speak a little because you practiced with him and traveled with him more than me. But
I know I was glad he was on my side. I think if you're one of his guys,
yeah.
But that's what makes him such a great player. Is he's incredibly aggressive. He's incredibly competitive and wants to. He has that little man syndrome. Wants to beat everybody. And I think, like you said, I follow him on social media too, and we stay in touch. But you see how much he's matured. You know what I mean? And how it's come a long way. So it's great to see that. And he's having a great year. And
he always seemed like there was a lot, at least it was maybe to me, because I went to his house a few times. I shot some stuff with him for the TV show. And he was always just super cool. And even when I didn't see him for years, I'll never forget, he stopped me. Him and Von Rivers were sitting out in the parking lot. And he had this souped up black Charger out there. I mean, this thing was sweet. And him and Von were sitting out there. And of course, I don't want to dive into too far what was going on out there, but it was after the spring game, so everybody was in, and he like rolls and starts yelling at me. Haven't seen him for years. Came over, gave him a big hug. Just a nice guy, but still playing in NFL, talented guy. We should try to get him on this show one day just to let him kind of just talk, because he's an interesting character, man. Just in general, he's the
second best corner we've ever had in Morgantown.
Well, your boy, man, Aaron Beasley gave it up to him.
No, it's a lie. Beasley's just being
Beasley
humble.
called him the best cornerback ever at West Virginia.
Really?
We always say Beasley was, but Beasley gave it up to him to say he's more physical and faster.
He might be. He's definitely more physical, but Beasley was incredible. Those are two great corners right there.
So, but let's get back to your career at West Virginia, coming out of high school. Tell us, what were your options coming out? Because you came to Morgantown as a walk-on. So just talk about that process and what led you to Morgantown.
Well, I was more of a baseball player, and my parents had unbelievable support, and they were really trying to give me baseball scholarship, and I had some offers, some like William and Mary, and I even had like Georgia had called me and wanted me to play baseball there, but I was not interested in leaving the state. I wanted to go to WVU, and I wanted to play baseball there, and I met with former coach Greg Van Zant on an official visit. He told me I was going to be a walk-on, and because I was in state, it was cheaper for me, and blah blah blah. And my mom said, well, the football team has asked him to walk on too, and he told me to my face, he said, you'll never step foot on Mountaineer Field. And from that moment, I knew that I wanted to prove him wrong, and so that moment sealed the deal for me. I was going to play football at WVU, and it's what I wanted to do my entire life. And if I was going to play for free, I might as well do what I love in front of a lot of people. And I'd kind of been burnt out through baseball, just trying so hard to get a scholarship and playing year round. And I loved football. I loved the team aspect. I was always a leader and a captain in my entire life growing up. So it just naturally fit me better, I think. And so just went on to play football and spent 5 years trying to prove that guy wrong. And if I saw him today, I'd thank him for the motivation, because it really motivated the hell out of me for a long time. But I didn't really have many options. I didn't go to many football camps. I was kind of naive, like some of the kids are in this area, that they were going to find me, that I was this great player, and didn't really understand, how things worked.
Right.
And my parents were really trying to help me play baseball, so I was more pushing the baseball thing, and then just fell in love with the game of football, and have been, have stayed with that ever since. So I didn't have too many options. Even to play at WVU, they just kind of did me a favor. Coach Edwards Sr. knew Donnie Young, and Donnie Young just kind of gave me a chance. They let me walk on. I was a first day of school guy. I didn't even get invited to camp. They just kind of let me be a part of the team. So, to me, that meant the world, and probably to them, they were just some other, just some guy we'll let on the team. Yeah.
Well, but I guess kind of walk. A lot of people have never been through that process. So talk about, as you said, you show up the first day of school, and you were a Mountaineer fan growing up. What's that like, showing up in Morgantown and putting that helmet on for the first time? Because, for an in-state guy, I'm sure that's pretty special.
Well, my first day of practice was awesome, kind of. And I'll tell you the story. I'll try to keep it kind of short. And I told my team this. I told West Virginia State this the first day. I was like, if your day is any harder or worse than mine, then I doubt it could be that hard, And so I go first day of school, and I'm in line. We have to do the physical and all that stuff. And so the guy in front of me turns around. We're bullshitting, and he says, he's like, hey, what are you? What position are you? Are you a kicker? And I'm like, I just kind of like, no, I'm a wide receiver. I'm from Charleston, and so I just started. I'm like, just kind of brush that one off, and then I'm in like the next line. Yeah, the next line I go to is like the eye, doing the eye test and the eyesight thing, and so I'm in line again. Another guy just bullshitting, trying to make friends, and he asked me again. He said, "What position are you? Are you a kicker or a punter?" And in my head, I'm like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, I wanted to kill this guy, and I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm a freaking wide receiver." Wait till you see what I can do on the field. But I didn't say that. I'm like, "No, I'm a wide receiver." And so we go out to practice, and we're a little late because we had to do all those things. And this is my shining moment. My championship game, and we had to wear red jerseys when we were redshirted back then, and the defense wore green jerseys if they were freshmen. So we come out there looking like a Christmas tree. I swear practice stopped, and everyone just made fun of us as we ran out, and they were finishing up their pre-practice stretch, and they were doing special teams. I'll never forget it. And I go to this special teams drill. And like I said, I'm amped up, and then they're doing kickoff drill, and I'm the kickoff return guy that has to block them. And I have a lane, and I'm supposed to keep them from going down that lane. Well, obviously we're not very good players, and these guys are just, they're kind of going through the motions. They've been through a long camp, and I'm blocking the shit out of these guys. I'm pancaking people, and then I'm kind of starting to get a crowd. Like they're like, this little guy is just going crazy. And I put my entire life into this one drill, and so I'm going hard, and next thing you know, Don Nealon stops practice. And he just looks at everyone. He says, "You're going to let this little pissant block you guys?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm thinking like, "Yeah, I just got the head coach noticed me." And so I get back up. I'm ready. Everyone's watching. The next guy up is Grant Wiley, who I did not know at the time it was him. Because he was a freshman. I didn't know who he was. And so he comes barreling down. I'm ready. He kind of gives me a little bit of a move. I rock back on my heels, and he just lays me out, man. I'm on the ground just. And I don't know if he said this or not, or if it's how I remember it, but he's like, "Welcome to college football, motherfucker." And just gets up, walks over me, and I'm like, "Oh my God." So I get back up, and everyone's kind of laughing and whatever. And, part of me, I guess some people might have thought, man, the head coach called me a pissant. Everyone thinks I'm a kicker, and this guy just knocked the shit out of me, But in my messed up head, I'm thinking, man, the head coach noticed me. I was doing great, and I took their best shot, and I got up fine. So for me, that day was awesome. I thought I can make it here, and maybe it's just because I was so dead set on making it that anything that would have happened that day would have led me to believe I was going to make it. But I told my players that the day, I'm like, their first day of practice, I'm like, if your day, I doubt your day is any worse than that. You get the hell knocked out of you, and your head coach calls you a pissant. So and everyone thinks you're a kicker. But that was my first day of practice, and that's a true story all the way. And I told Don Nealon that I saw him this summer. He didn't remember it at all, but he loved hearing the story. I was a nobody, and he didn't know who I was. But a couple of people still call me a pissant because I called my parents right after practice and was like, "Hey, Don Nealon called me a pissant. He noticed me." And so it's a term that doesn't get used enough. Definitely was a little pissant back then. But
you should use that in your practices.
Yeah. I try to use some Don Nealon terms as much as possible.
Well, you're coaching football now, and I guess what do you bring from Coach Nealon and Rich and some of the characters that were on those staff? I mean, you talk about some characters. There's some characters on those staffs, but what do you bring from that aspect into what you're doing now as a coach over at Western State?
Well, I think there's a lot. I spoke with Don Nealon this summer and learned a lot from him, and I think just being around. The only thing I knew was how Steve Edwards ran a program, how Don Nealon ran a program, and how Rich Rodriguez ran a program. So that's all I knew. So I'm sure 95% of what I do comes from Rich and Don and Steve. And, a little bit, obviously I tweak it in my own way, but Rich was such a great motivator, and he had that hard edge we always talk about, and the Bill Stewart straining and some of those things that they're just ingrained in my DNA now, and I sound just like them. There's plenty of things I do that they did to me that I might have thought was crazy at the time, but now as a coach I understand what they were trying to get out of me, and so I'd say 95% of what I do is from them, and even Don Nealon, when I talked to him this summer, he had some great things. I thought, he talked about how you always talk positive about your assistant coaches. And so I'll go around in the locker room and I'll find maybe a guy that looks like he's down and say, "Hey, I know, how was your day?" He tells me he had a bad day. I'll say, "Don't worry, you got a great position coach. He's going to make you a lot better." And I think that provides this, what they did was they built an incredible culture, Don Nealon and Rich. And so building that culture is what I've learned probably the most, and how to make it a tough blue collar, type of approach. And it's all I know. And I was fortunate to work for those guys. So building that tough blue collar culture, I think, is what I learned from them the most. And I try and emulate them as much as possible. I mean, Don Nealon's a Hall of Famer, and Rich Rodriguez probably will be. So two good guys to emulate.
Did you ever get to partake in the karaoke nights with Herb Hand at Chicken Bones?
I don't think we ever did a tandem. Me and Quincy Wilson did a couple at the Back Door. I can't remember the song from Old School. Total Eclipse of the Heart. That was our go-to on Wednesday nights at the Back Door.
Herb was always at Bones doing "Baby Got Back."
That he did. I think he did "Heartbreak Hotel" too. A lot.
Every time I saw Herb down there, he was doing the "Baby Got Back," and he always had two chicks who would dance on him up there, and him and Wagner. Wagner used to always bring him in there. I remember one time we were in there, and I think Herb had some recruits' parents or something. There was some boosters in there. Wagner comes over and gets me and Cooper, and he's like, "You boys come on over here." He's like, "You need to meet this guy." So he introduces us to Herb, and then the boosters with all the cheese that are buying everything. Wagner introduces us as recruits. And I was like, I was like, "What the hell's going on, Wagner?" And he's like, "Just go with it. This guy's got a lot of money, and he's just going to buy everything for you because he thinks you're going to come to school here." And I was, done deal. So the guy starts throwing out shots, and then Herb's up there doing the "Baby Got Back" thing. That was always.
Did you just self-report an NCAA violation?
No.
What, an actual recruit?
Yeah, I'm not a recruit.
True.
I was lying to get the free drinks as I was a broken down college student.
I'm just going to say that was probably a fake story. No, if anybody from the NCAA is listening, that part of the show was not true.
I tell you what Herb did. When you were with us for the Tire Bowl, we missed Christmas, and so we were together. We were in. Coach Rodriguez tried to sell it as our, we had our football family together for Christmas. We all thought that was BS. We did not want to be away from our families at Christmas.
I had to drive to Charlotte because I came home. And did you leave from Morgantown, or did you come from?
I probably drove because you got more cash.
Per diem,
yeah. So I probably drove, but that we had a Christmas Eve, function, and they gave our bowl gifts to us that night, and it was obviously not Christmas Eve, for what we're used to, and so, but Herb Hand, they had karaoke, and Herb Hand sang Eminem, the 8 Mile song, I can't remember what, Lose Yourself. He was up there, he made that night special, and for all of us that were, kind of missing being home, It was awesome what he did up there for us and for those guys, and I'll never forget that. I mean, I was like, this sucks. I mean, they're trying, I get it. And then when he came up there and started singing, then we all kind of got up there and we're messing around singing Jingle Bells and stuff like that. And it made the night, and there were people like Herb Hand is what made that program so special. In your time up there, which was bigger? I mean, what would you say the biggest game was for you? I mean, obviously you had the big catch against Pitt, which, Rashid said he didn't even know you caught it. We had talked to him earlier. He said he couldn't even see you down there, and he just threw it up and you went and got it. Or would you say that beating Vatek down there with Wiley's stop, which of those, I mean? It's hard, personally, obviously the Pitt game. And I, when I played for Nealon, he hated Pitt. Most coaches will say, this is just another week, just prepare. Not done. And Coach Nealon would be like, this is Pitt. We prepare harder than it. He did not bounce around, that it was a rivalry game and that we had to beat them. And I always thought that was cool. So I always took that mentality. So beating Pitt for me was extremely special. But when we beat Vatek down there at Vatek in that atmosphere, I knew – I believed in Rich from the beginning, and I'm sure there was some of my friends, Crum, some of the guys I grew up with were like, we don't know, we're 3-8, and I believe so wholeheartedly. And after that game, I'm like, this is special. Something is special is happening here. We just did something incredible, and there's more to come. So that was like the turning point where it's like something special is happening here. And then obviously the Pitt game was different because, just beating Pitt, and obviously I had a big role in a role that I wanted to have for a long time. So that was pretty special. Do you have that picture in your house? Yeah. The Dale Sparks picture? Yeah, I got a bunch of them. I've got a bunch of them. That was, obviously a great night for me and a great night to be a Mountaineer. So I love living that moment up.
What would you say was the turning point? You told the story about your first day at practice where you he didn't even know your name. He referred to you as Pissant. But what was the point where you were getting your shot? Like, all right, I'm getting my shot. I've came from being told that I'm never going to I'm never even going to see the field at WVU to, oh shit, I'm playing. Like, they're throwing me the ball. Like, where was that turning point with which staff? How'd that happen? I think I can't remember a specific moment other than when I was in, we call it the shit show, but it was like the shitty locker room that all the walk-ons got put in, and it wasn't in the main locker room. And I have a lot of pride in that. With every school I've been to, we have our own little shit show that we can't fit enough players into. Right. So some of the freshmen walk-on go in this horrible old locker room, and I was in that. And when I got, I had been scout team player of the week, and obviously, had turned some heads as far as my effort things concerned. And when Rich came, he said that it didn't matter who you were. It was open competition. It would be like that every single day for as long as he was in charge of the program. And when I got back from winter break, they moved me out of the shit show and into the main locker room. And I thought that was, to me, that was like the biggest day of my life. I'm like, I'm actually in the locker room, And so that was and it was like he backed up what he said, And I started making some plays, and they started just throwing me in there, and they were like, if no one else will go full speed and do what they're supposed to do, we know this guy will. And so I found my niche that spring just by busting my ass, blocking. I remember getting in a fight with Ricky Sherrod in the spring game. And I think that was the turning point where they were like, this kid will do anything to play. He'll fight the biggest, baddest guy on the team. And I didn't care. I wanted to get on the field, and he would have beat the hell out of me. There's no doubt. But I was not afraid to go toe to toe and lose a fight just to get on the field. So, and I think I earned some respect, in the fact that it didn't matter who you were. I was going to go full speed, and if that's what it took to play, I was going to do it. And they backed up their word. I always wanted to play more, and I was always, bitter when I didn't get enough playing time. But at the same time, they backed up what they said. If you go full speed and you do what we tell you to do, and you do the things the right way, that they're going to play you. And they did. And he gave me a shot, and luckily I made the most of it. In that role as a walk-on, do you kind of see, like, I know I played in high school. I didn't play any college ball. But in that role where you're kind of the walk-on and you're the guy who's out there, you're going hard 110% every day in practice, did you ever see that maybe guys who've been recruited higher and just kind of it had always just been given to them? Did you ever find, did you ever run into those guys who would be pissed and, tell you to ease up and relax and, pump the brakes? And how do you handle that? I would assume coming in as a walk-on and then you're on the field, you probably, from a lot of the guys, you garnered a lot more respect and, you get what you put into it. But how many of those guys did you run into that had it handed to them and then they're pissed off because you're out there going hard and they're just kind of laying back thinking it's all just going to be given to them again?
All the time. I mean, every semester. I mean, there was constantly junior college guys coming in, or just anyone they would bring in with talent to try and win. But the difference, as a walk-on, if you made one mistake, you were done for weeks. They were done with you. But if you were a scholarship player, especially a guy that was on that they really wanted to play, if you did one thing right, you were in for a while. And so that part was frustrating, but I didn't. I knew that was coming. I knew that was going to happen, and so it didn't really affect me in a negative way. But I remember so many guys my freshman year saying, "Hey, man, just why don't you transfer down to Fairmont? You're a great player. You'd be a great little player down there." And I was like, you know what? That's my dreams to play here. I don't have any dreams to play at Fairmont. Or I want to run out of the helmet. I want to don the blue and gold. I want to be a Mountaineer. And people respected that. And after a while, that they just said, we can't stop him. He's going to do that anyway. He's going to go way too hard, and that's just who he is. And I think you garnish more respect by doing that than you do by trying to be everybody's buddy. And it caused a little bit of friction early on, but at the end of the day, I think they respected what I was trying to do. But there was plenty of guys that just, I don't know if they did expect those opportunities to be handed to them, and they were handed to them, and they never capitalized on them. And and it showed because they didn't play as much.
And then to go from being, the baseball coach telling you you're never going to see the field as a football player, and then to that moment where you make that catch against Pitt. I mean, what was that feeling like when you lay out and make that catch, and then it's just like, that's your time?
I'd made that catch a million times in my head in the car ride to Morgantown to Charleston.
In
Sandlot. Yeah. I mean, that was my go-to signature was spectacular catches, and so I'd made that catch in that corner in that game. Can't tell you how many times in my imagination, and so I mean, it almost felt like it was meant to happen. And when I did get up, I'm like, thank God I actually caught this ball, and just couldn't believe it that it actually happened. But that moment was a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it was very gratifying, to know that it worked really hard to get to that point. But there's a lot of disappointment in success. I mean, the best part about it was just knowing that I contributed to this program that was going places, and that was really all I wanted, was to have a role, one that helped. Made my parents proud, made Mountaineer fans proud. So that was more gratifying than actually making the catch. Was just, hey, I did something here, that I can remember for a long time.
That was a huge win.
Yeah, at the
It
time.
was
15.
in the 15th.
Yeah.
They had Larry Fitzgerald. I
Again.
think that's kind of gone. We blew him out in the second half too. I think
Blew
we
him
went
out.
52-31.
I think that catch basically was the transition.
Yeah, that was the turning point.
Yeah, that game. I think that was their dagger.
Q also rushed for like 200 some yards. It's about 150 in the
That
second
guy,
half.
in talking about Quincy, obviously still keep in touch with him. He's doing his thing in Morgantown, but you meant, he was like a bull. Like when he came in and ran, they had Avon Coburn, who was kind of a slash guy. He could go left and right, then boom around the edge he'd go. But then Quincy got the ball and would just run straight over your ass.
He could bust some long runs too.
Yeah, I mean,
he could break one off too.
But that guy, if you remember the early in the game, Virginia Tech at home, I believe it may have been the same season, the night that the pepper spray night. Mm-hmm. One of their safeties, and it seemed like we were going towards the scoreboard side. He came down to our sideline, and a guy, one of their corners or safeties, hit him, or Quincy basically bowled over him. I don't think that guy came back onto the field. I remember hearing like he was out, like concussion. He was just a hard runner.
He annihilated Merriweather on that play against Miami. Merriweather's like one of the most feared safeties in the NFL. He's always getting fined for killing people.
Quincy hit him with the truck stick.
But
He didn't get enough credit for how hard he worked.
He was so good.
I think he
blew his knee out.
He squatted, more than anyone on the team, and his lower body was incredibly strong. And I think people would just bounce off his thighs, trying to tackle him.
He's like a bowling ball.
He was.
That's what I used to call him. But you played there at a time, and this is a good transition point. You played there in a time where we played in the Big East, and we started talking about it even before we started recording. It seems like there's a lack of Eastern football, and I would love nothing for them just to blow up all these conferences and rebuild them regionally, and put together an Eastern football conference. If you were going to put together a conference, Eastern football conference, Who would you guys like to see in that conference?
You were talking about earlier that original Penn State, Syracuse, Boston College, that original Pitt, Big East, Pitt, WVU, Virginia Tech, that original Eastern Conference. It was kind of interesting you brought that up, but they're divide and conquer. Is how you destroy it, and it's all these Eastern teams are in different conferences spread out. It's not surprising that there is a lack of success.
Well, I think the funny thing about all this is if you watch the 30 for 30 or whatever on the Big East that ESPN did,
the hoops
was this so romanticized vision of Big East hoops in the 80s, and then they talk about how football ruined everything for the Big East, which is kind of funny coming from ESPN because they're the ones who broke up the Big East football as it was.
Right.
And I mean, you had in the 80s, you had us, Boston College, Penn State, Pitt, and
well, let me correct you. We were independent.
Right. But it was a de facto conference.
Right. Yeah.
In the early 80s, Pitt was a powerhouse. Penn State was a powerhouse until the mid 90s.
Right.
We played for a national championship in the 80s, and Syracuse went undefeated in 1987. I mean, it was quality. Flutie won the Heisman. Boston College was ranked in the early 80s. I mean, it was good football. And that really started with Penn State leaving to go to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of the end for what I consider Eastern football.
I think when Penn State left, I think it did two things. I think it was like the first bolt to come loose in the Eastern Football Conference, or everyone that was competing for the Lambert Trophy, which they still compete for, by the way. I don't know if you guys were aware of that, but they still.
Are we eligible?
Yeah, we're still eligible.
We're still eligible.
And I think it was the first bolt to come loose. But then what you saw was Penn State bolts, and then I think the other teams. Well, it opened the door for Notre Dame to kind of play their role.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, we need a Notre Dame in basketball.
And they cobbled together this football conference with Miami, us, the Big East.
Yeah.
And it was never, I don't think, there was the Big East, the leadership up in Providence was basketball first. And this was the time, late 80s, early 90s was when college football, you began to see the potential for millions and billions of dollars. So the Big East was honestly doomed from the start.
It's sad. I mean, if you look around now and look at what's happened, and I ran some numbers before I came in. The first wave of the crumbling of the Big East Conference was the Virginia Tech, Miami, and Boston College exit, which allowed, I believe, UConn, Cincinnati, and Louisville to come into the Big East Conference. Since leaving, listen to this. Since leaving, Boston College has probably had the worst run. They're
irrelevant.
Yeah, you hardly see them on television unless they're playing Notre Dame. They're 84-69. They've been to no BCS bowls. They've had 4 new head coaches and currently stand 3-8 and going into play their last game against Syracuse. Boston College was never that type of team. And I was looking at the numbers, and out of that 84 wins, all that's backloaded like from 2000, like when Tom O'Brien was still there. They were winning, still winning 8, 9, 10 football games.
They were solid.
Virginia Tech, Miami has – the numbers are sort of there, but –
Miami went downhill when Luther Campbell was asked to stay away from the program.
But for Miami standards, since they've left, they're 88-61, no BCS bowls, no ACC titles, I believe. 3 head coaches. Right now they're 7-4, which is kind of shocking considering I didn't think they were going to even win 6
I saw a picture from their game yesterday, and if there was 3,000 people, it looked like Temple when we used to go to Temple.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
But they're 7-4, heading to Pittsburgh to play. Virginia Tech is the one team I thought benefited from the whole thing. They've been to 5 BCS games, although they're 0-5. But they kind of came in. They were, Beamer had it rolling.
Right.
And because when they left, I believe Marcus Vick was still their quarterback.
Yeah.
They've won 106 games and lost 41, 5 BCS games, and they're currently 5-6. But obviously, Beamer's it's ran his course down there.
You got Cuse?
But so the second wave,
right?
Of and I only ran the numbers since they left. Syracuse is 13-23. But they have had the Scott Schaefer guy. He's been there since then, but they've only won 13 games.
Do you remember how good they were in the 80s and 90s?
Yeah.
I mean,
Donovan McNabb,
what the
Marvin
hell
Frames.
happened to Syracuse?
Bro, I mean, listen, I've been in, first of all, I've never understood how they recruited a running back to that place. That place made Laidley Field look like the Taj Mahal.
Yeah,
as far as the turf was concerned. I remember there was one spot. I remember while I was walking across the field, it was like there was like a
trap
drain
door or something.
was underneath of it.
It's like in a 35-yard line, right in the middle of the field.
And it was like it would sink down.
Hotter
And I'm
than hell
thinking,
in that place too.
if I'm a running back, why the hell would I come and run on this shit? I may as well go out and play in the street because it was so hard in there.
You don't show guys things like that in the recruiting.
No, but they were getting players because they were Syracuse. They've only won 13 games since they've been in the ACC, which basically their exit was the death knell in the Big East Conference because that caused us to have to leave, and everyone's kind of
the whole Big 12 move. It doesn't make sense geographically, but you got to land where you can land because if he doesn't make the move to the Big 12, you're stuck in that American Conference or whatever. And the ACC's whole reason for not taking us with the education thing, and it's not on par. That's bullshit because North Carolina's handing out scholarships or diplomas to people who can't even, don't even go to class.
Well, back to Eastern football though. Penn State has not fallen off the face of the earth.
No, they haven't been Penn State,
but they have not been Penn State. They have not been in the conversation for a national title for what?
Their move to the Big Ten didn't benefit them at all.
I mean, you got to think that they're third behind Ohio State and Michigan. When they were playing Eastern teams, they dominated all of us.
If you read Eastern football, remember the magazines?
Yeah.
Eastern football was always Paterno, and then
of all the teams that came to Morgantown, though, and I was only fortunate enough to go to 2 Penn State games. There was nothing like Penn State coming to Morgantown. Wow. Our fans were juiced.
Did you avoid Jerry Sandusky at those 2 games you went to?
Yes, thank God. Because I was 8.
That was his wheelhouse, man.
Yeah. So he show you the locker room? Yeah. Something you want to tell us here, Crum? A little backstage tour when you were at Penn State?
But basically, out of the 5 Big East teams that are in the ACC right now, the only team that is currently at this, as we're speaking, is Pittsburgh. It's actually doing okay, and they're under a new head coach. Pat Narduzzi has them 8-3. They're probably gonna finish second in their division and probably go to a good bowl. Hopefully,
Narduzzi will be out of there in 2 years. They can't hold on to a coach.
Yeah, I mean
that place is a dump. That place is a shit hole.
Who? Where?
Pitt. The stadium and all that shit. Just the campus is a dump.
Oh, but they play at Heinz. Well, trust me, they sell that, bro. They have their own half of the stadium, and whenever you go in there to their games, it doesn't look like anything Steeler. They change all the flags out. I mean, trust me, they change it all up. But they sell Heinz Stadium, I lived in Oakland.
It's horrible
for a year. That place was a hellhole.
It's a shithole.
The only thing cool about Oakland is you could go out to the O on Forbes Avenue at 3:00 in the morning and get a 40 and
OE?
You could get anything, man. They had all kinds. You could get a 40 and like a rotisserie chicken at like 2:30 in the morning.
Why are you buying rotisserie chicken?
You could get anything in the O.
Yeah, why not?
If it's there, I gotta get a couple of OEs and that rotisserie chicken.
Sounds delicious.
Throw me a bottle of hot sauce in
They
there,
had
too.
everything in there. I mean, I just think it's a shame the fact that there's just. I mean, Texas comes to Morgantown. I don't care.
Oh, hold up. Texas is Texas, though.
But I don't get fired up.
Texas doesn't play Texas A&M anymore. I mean, are you kidding me?
But listen, if that was Pitt, Virginia Tech.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the thing was, man,
I get wound up. These teams that come in now.
You always had Pitt the last game of the year, so you're right there around Thanksgiving. And that used to be one, you'd fill a stadium. Next week, you're looking at probably, I think they'll be lucky to have 30,000 in the seats for that Iowa State game. But the Pitt game, you could always count on it was going to be packed because it was Pitt.
They used to play on Thanksgiving. Remember?
There was never
Thanksgiving.
There was never a question about, am I going to that? Like, people now, it's like, shit, man, do I really want to go to Iowa State? Like, I don't care. With Pitt, it was never, I may go, I may not. I'm going to be in the stadium and I'm going to be screaming shit at these Pitt fans, and I can't wait to roll them and then just go out and throw down in Morgantown.
Yeah, raise hell.
You always see these like things on Facebook where these fans write these articles about how nice our fans are. I'm like, who are they talking about? Like that.
Well,
I haven't been able to go to very many games because
We're nice to all the Big 12 fans.
That's what I mean. Like that doesn't sound like our fan base.
Well,
like I'm sure if Pitt and VT, that you would not get those letters.
No.
Like you said, there's just not as much passion about playing Texas. It's cool. It's like, oh, we played Texas, but it's not like playing Pitt. The passion's not there.
Yeah, and that's that kind of that candy ass marketing plan. Remember, you go around the stadium, they had those little signs, those politicals. Be polite. You know what? Kiss my ass. I'm going to get drunk. You're celebrating the stadium. I'm going to get drunk and raise hell out here now.
That was for insurance
and get
purposes.
loud. Yeah.
a lot of the Big 12 fans though that come in, they're fairly inoffensive, whereas Pitt fans are just
Pitt fans called us incestuous redneck.
Yeah. I remember the Pitt game.
I love that on the field when they would yell stuff at us. I mean, you ate it up as a player. I mean, you couldn't wait to shut them up.
I mean, that
made everything better.
They made you walk the gauntlet up there at Heinz to get in. Like I said, I think I told you guys the story about me hitting that dude in the face with my beer. And then I had made the mistake of not looking to make sure all my boys were there as I threw the beer and hit him in his face. He had about 8 guys with him, and luckily the security guard broke that one up. But they're just like Crum said, they're yelling the incestuous shit, and it's just enough's enough. Finish the beer, hit him in the face, and then let's go.
Yeah.
And that.
I mean, eat shit, Pitt.
Fans,
do we cuss at any team that we play now? I mean, eat shit, Pitt. They still
That
Neil Diamond comes on.
The Texas game, there was an eat shit Pitt chant.
Yeah,
out of nowhere.
For years and years, remember the Pitt Sucks and Penn State Swallows T-shirts? Yeah. I mean, there's some legitimate.
There's really no rivalry in the Big 12. Like, you've lost because the closest to us is Iowa State, and they're going to try to say that's our rival.
That's who we play in rivalry week. That's
it's like get out of here, man. I mean, it makes no sense. The Big 12 thing. That's a move. I don't like it because it's funner when you could drive to like Cincinnati and all these places and watch the road games, and now you can't do that unless you want to drop a G or more to fly to Texas, and and it's just not worth it.
Think about trying to recruit someone that their parents can't watch them play.
Yeah.
You can only watch them play once a year in Texas, or even if they're from around here, they only get to watch them in home games. I mean, that makes a big difference when you're anyone that you don't want to see your kids go that far away and you can't watch them, unless you have the means to do it. But
I think it's more so. It's not just about our move to the Big 12. It's just the division and the
division
of
it
all
makes no
Eastern
sense.
football.
It makes no sense.
They're killing rivalries. And if the SEC goes to 9 games,
and
Florida might not play Florida State, Clemson might not play South Carolina.
That's what makes college football so great.
And that's the best thing about college football. It's all about money. It's all about TV. It's all about putting Rutgers to the Big Ten because you get the New York market share. Well, who in New York gives a shit about Rutgers football? Same thing with Boston College. Does anybody in Boston care about Boston College?
When they brought that stuff up, West Virginia has some of the highest rated games ever on ESPN.
Yeah.
And they don't look at the state of West Virginia as a market, and they don't understand that the whole state is watching. So you're 1.8 million, other than the people down here close to Kentucky and Ohio, are watching WVU. So that's 1 million people. So you've got 1 million people watching versus how many people that actually watch Boston College out of that big ass city. Right. Probably 20 or
It's not even about ratings though. It's about getting games on cable packages. It's not about winning. That's what drives me crazy about all this. Is it's going to get to the point where I think you're seeing this with NASCAR. You watered down. NASCAR? Yeah, well, they watered down and made the event so corporate that the true fans don't want to go. You need true fans in college football.
Can you still take beer in a NASCAR race? You used to be able to take.
You could the last time I went.
Why are you going to NASCAR races?
Because you can drink beer the whole time.
What, are you excited for Jeff Gordon's today? His big send-off today? Are you going to watch that instead of the NFL?
I don't watch NASCAR. I've gone to tailgate a few times.
I've been to one race. It's the Coke 600, and it was before I hit the booze heavy. God, it was awful, dude. There's no wrecks. I had the Charlotte deal. I know that sounds pretty morbid of me, but the Charlotte deal, there's wrecks in the first 8 laps, and then it's just Bobby Labonte just leading the way for the other 700 laps. It was so brutal.
All right, well, we are way over on this show, so let's do this. we're going to exit out. But Diddy,
Beer of the week.
yep, we need it.
Well,
This would be interesting. Think about it for a second. It's a tough one. Think about it. Because
Let me
there's a
get
lot
this.
going on yesterday. It was a shitty game, but don't get Smallwood's off the table.
I can't give it to Smallwood.
No, because you give it to him every week.
Yeah, because he deserves it. Guy puts in work.
Got to give it to Cody Clay, man. Had a touchdown.
I like that.
Local
Yeah,
guy.
2 touchdowns.
He had 2?
He's got 2.
Oh,
in the season.
yeah. For
2 catches for 2 touchdowns.
That ain't bad.
It's amazing, though, the transformation of the offense. That now all of a sudden we're throwing to that tight end. The fullbacks are blocking. I'm like, man, is it Don Nealon down there coaching? Did Danny Don go in there with his crooked finger and point it in Dana's face?
Fuck
Listen
it.
here, you asshole.
Let's give it to. I'm not giving it to Russell Shell. He disgusts me. So we'll go with Howard. Howard had a pretty good running game.
Wow.
I'll give it to Howard.
Scott.
Yeah, we'll give it to Howard. I didn't get to watch the second half. I was pretty much in the bag. So we'll go Howard since Smallwood's off the table for me. I think Smallwood should just get the beer of the week every week because he's toting the mail.
Their O-line did a pretty good job, 426 yards.
Yeah, I'd give it to the O-line. I'd also give it to the Mountaineer if he had to do push-ups the first half, because that probably wasn't
He's
easy.
probably like, thank God.
Yeah, put in Crest, please.
Yeah, somebody. You want to hand one out today, John? A beer of the week? Would you just hand it out to the O-line?
Man, I'm going Cody Clay. That's biased reasons, but my man caught a touchdown. Had a great career there in West Virginia and probably exceeded a lot of expectations.
I think I'm going to give my beer of the week. I'm going to hand it to Gibby in the defense. Shutout.
Very
this
good.
day and age in the Big 12, I don't care who you're playing. You pitch a shutout. That's you're doing big things there. So, that's good. That's good ball game. I think that team needed that this time of the season, especially if it gives them a little swagger heading into the last 2 games. If they can pull those out,
Things are looking up.
Yeah, those guys probably
The women's soccer team won.
women's
The
soccer team's still in
Hoops
it.
team is 3-0. They should be ranked. I don't know why they weren't, but
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that. We talked briefly about that. I watched a little bit of that. First half, I was sitting there and I was like, holy shit, what the hell are these guys doing? Is anybody awake? Hello? Is this thing on? Like, these guys are sleepwalking. And I'll be damned, like, we got up and fixed our plates and came back and we were up 15. I mean, like, blink of an eye, and this team just turned it on.
we're going to find out what we got. We got that tournament out of Vegas. We played
Yes.
Richmond. That should be a win. JMU beat them, and then we will get the winner of California and San Diego State. Cal's ranked in San Diego State. I don't know if they are, but they've been pretty good the last 5 or 6 years. So
tournament.
yeah, we're going to find out. We're going to find out about Press Virginia.
Well, speaking of rivalry week, if you want to call it that, we're not going to call it that shit. Fuck ESPN in their rivalry week stuff. Iowa State, we got them coming up this week. Real fast, we'll kick it around the horn, and
We roll.
You like us?
Yeah. I gotta go handle some business.
So, all right. Well, go ahead, John. If you
41-17 Mountaineers running the ball all game. I'm looking forward to it. I will be there. I suggest everyone else join me.
John?
Did Iowa State win yesterday? I know they played somebody tough.
Blew it.
I think they're going to play us a little tougher than probably most people think, but I got the Mountaineers winning 31-24.
Yeah, I like us next week. I think we're going to line it up and just keep smash mouthing. It seems to work. Teams in the Big 12 don't like that, man. They don't like getting punched in the face like those old Miami teams, those finesse teams, as I used to call them. If you're going to be a finesse team, like Rich used to say, because that's what they thought when he was coming, we were going to be a finesse
Nothing
team.
pissed him off.
And it was, I wish we could just sit and do another 40 minutes just talking about Rich Rodriguez. Because, we were a hard edge team and just punch teams like that in the face. And that's the way you beat them and just wear them down. So I like West Virginia next week. I'll give us 31-21. I think they'll get a garbage touchdown lane. We'll go 31-17. 2 touchdowns and a field goal. So, but we're going to wrap this show up. And I don't know, John, if you want, man, you can come back next week. If you want to come. I like having you here in the studio. We could do a whole Rich Rodriguez show next week because I got a funny story to tell after the Pitt game. The year that we lost to Boston College and then to Pittsburgh back-to-back
My senior year.
Yeah. He, are you aware of what happened in the locker room? Remember, because he had his own private coach's locker room?
Yeah, I don't know.
Real quick, I'll tell this story, and you'll understand. So I was setting up to shoot. We used to have to shoot the coach's interview for Mountaineer Magazine. If we were on the road, and it was Thanksgiving, I believe. It was Thanksgiving night, I believe, or the night after. So it was like, as soon as the game's over, you set up, and we'll do it right in his locker room. That way we don't have to do it when we get back to Morgantown. So I had all my cameras and all my lighting shit set up. And there was the visiting coaches NFL locker room. There's a shower and a separate locker room, locker. And some setup, and you just hear him in there. Fuck! Shit! Boom! Just hitting shit. He like broke the towel dispenser off the door. I mean, he was slamming shit around in there. It went on for so long that I left. I was like, I don't want him to walk out and know that I heard all that. So I'm going to go stand out in the hallway. I mean, you talk about somebody, because that's why I always say when people say that he threw the Michigan. That's why I'm always like, no, that's not even true. It can't be true because, and what, nobody hated to lose Coach Rodriguez.
Yeah, he competed too
hard. You know how good coaches are crazy? He's crazy like that.
Yeah.
And that's a true story. I didn't want it to be so. It was already going to be awkward having to interview him because he had we'd lost another heartbreaker. I had to interview him after coming back from Miami. We flew all the way home and did it 3:00 in the morning in the office, and he just wasn't in a good mood. And you talking about somebody that didn't want to hated to lose. Rich was
breaking news: Iowa State just fired Paul Rhodes.
Wow.
Oh, shit. That's not good for us next week.
Yeah, it is. They're going to be a mess.
What happens to teams whenever they're interim coach? They always play better the next week.
Kansas didn't last year.
Well,
there's just like a relief.
Yeah, it's something.
It
weird.
could go either way.
Yeah,
it just depends on.
Yeah, I hope the wheels fall off for him, but I hate that. And another thing I don't want to happen is I don't want Bill Snyder to announce his retirement. So we got to play him on his farewell game. Like Beamer yesterday. They were playing hard for him there at the end. Probably, if he wasn't retiring, that shit team would have just laid down. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they came and they fought back. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to change my prediction now. I like Iowa State next week. No, I still like us next week. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. But that was kind of we were expecting that. Well, John, man, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have me back. I'd love to come back again. I got to see what the schedule is, but I love coming in here and BS with you guys.
You've got some little ones and you got all that stuff going on. But if you're free next Sunday morning, you want to come by. I think next week we're going to have Mike Logan on. I don't know if you know Mike.
I don't know Mike. Never had a chance to meet him.
We do it by phone, so he'll be on. But we'll get out of here. We're going to go watch a little bit of NFL football. And for those of you guys listening, thanks for tuning in this week. And we will see you guys next week here in Section 304.
The producer for Section 304 is Steve Adams for SAA Productions. SAA Productions specializes in affordable, small-scale audio and video projects. Wanted to jump on the podcast bandwagon? Call 304-299-1234. That's 304-299-1234. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and on Twitter.